Good morning, good day, and good evening to all of you lovely people out there. My name is Jesper Olsen. I'm a co-sale manager here at Firesoft, and I have the pleasure of basically introducing this webinar on Windows Virtual Desktop and enabling business continuity for our Microsoft partners today. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for setting aside some of your precious time to listen into some of the experiences that we made and how we work with our lovely people at Microsoft on a day-to-day basis and going through some of the use cases today. But just some of the housekeeping rules for today. The recording will be available after the webinar on our website, but also for every one of the attendees here should be getting an actual link to it by Teams live event. We'll also have some post-webinar collaterals I'll be sending your guys' way in terms of assessment materials. Some of these materials we'll be going through today. Furthermore, one of the lovely features about a live event is that we have a Q&A section. So up to the right, you can ask all the questions you want, and then the speakers that I will introduce very, very shortly, whoever's not speaking will be available to answer the questions of any technical facet that you might have. So as it says here, just ask away and we'll be right on it. Now, for today's agenda, we'll be going over briefly Firesoft modern work and security practice. Furthermore, along those lines, we have something called Firepower to the MS field, which I think will be very, very interesting for a lot of the AEs and the Microsoft people here. Just our general practice of enabling the field. And then we'll go into the heart and soul of this webinar presentation, which is regarding Windows Virtual Desktop, the classic use cases, the new norm, how we at Firesoft solve the WE use cases that we're seeing, and how we are becoming a valuable Microsoft partner, and then a DaaS Manager and Q&A section at the end of it. Now, so before we get into the real presentation, just a couple of words about Firesoft if you haven't heard about it. I assume most of you have heard about us or even worked with us. But some of the things here at Firesoft, we've got about 1,500 consultants working on a daily basis. Like, as you can see, we have a lot of Microsoft competencies. We work with over 300 enterprise clients across 40 states here in the US, and basically 1 in 10 of the Fortune 50 companies work with us or Firesoft or People Tech. The People Tech being the main umbrella of our company. And then a little bit about Firesoft in general is that we're basically digital transformation experts, and we're also a gold partner at Microsoft. And we've worked with Microsoft for the better part of a decade now, I believe. And really what we do is we bring people, data and processes together and help our clients, accounts, and even our friends at Microsoft have this competitive edge in this digital first world. And since we're working so closely with Microsoft, basically our main competencies revolve around the 3 pillars of Microsoft, which is modern work and security, Azure, and applications and data. Now, for today's speakers, I have the lovely privilege of introducing 2 of my esteemed colleagues that I've been working a lot with. First off, we have Prasad Paluri, who's the Director of Cloud Services, and Jagdish, who is one of top Azure and modern work specialists here at Firesoft. But I just want to give the word over to Prasad. And Prasad, if you want to say a few things about yourself.
Thank you, Jesper. Thank you everyone for attending this session. I've been working in this organization for more than 6 years, have been in WVD space, deploying WVD for a long time, and I'm very glad to present myself on all the use cases we have done with WVD and the tools we have developed. Jagdish?
Sure. Thanks, Prasad. Hey, good morning. This is Jagdish. I'm with Firesoft for the last 8 years, primarily focused on modern work and security side. I'm based out in Seattle. So one of my key responsibility here is to help build solutions for technology adoption. So, and my primary responsibility is to work with field and make sure that the field is successful in rolling out some of these Microsoft technologies to their customers. So let's go ahead and get started. As I lead the modern work and security practice, as well as things on the Azure side, one of my primary goal is to build solutions and help accelerate technology adoption with customers. And Microsoft has built over various technologies in the past 5 years, specifically on the cloud side. And all of these technologies can really work together, and it can coexist really well as a one holistic solution. So you might have seen partners specifically focused on one initiative, which could be either on device management with Intune and SCCM, partners specifically working on the security side of endpoints, and partners working specifically on the hardware. So what we do is we are a partner who also do that, but the key differentiation is we take all of that solutions and we put together and we really paint a holistic picture on how these Microsoft technologies have evolved over a period of time and how this can be really leveraged to meet customers' needs by building a full holistic solution on the cloud. I know this specific webinar is going to be more focused on WBD. My colleague Prasad will talk more on that. But before we get into that, I just wanted to highlight one flagship solution that we built, and I will probably turn it over to my colleague to talk more on the WBD. So Jesper, let's roll. All right. So one of the key challenges that we see is customers, they are primarily on-prem and they have a little bit of a cloud presence with Office 365, Azure Active Directory, and over the last few years, we have definitely helped a lot of customers move to Microsoft Teams, but their cloud journey on the modern workplace side doesn't end there. So there are a lot of other opportunities that they can take, especially during this time when people have pretty much moved to cloud and the organization doesn't have a very solid way of managing their devices and securing their devices unless the users are VPN'd in. So to address this specific challenge, we worked with Microsoft, and we also helped build a solution to roll out a fully cloud managed strategy for endpoint management. So we worked and extended our offering to Microsoft Intune for PC management, and we also did autopilot for device provisioning, and we also turned on WBD as we saw a lot of demand coming through on the WBD side, especially during the COVID days. So we went to specific customers. We turned on autopilot for them. Users are remote, so IT has no way of re-imaging their machines with their CCM and handing over to the new users. So we turned on autopilot. We introduced Intune for device management. We also did Active Directory for domain joins, and the policies would start flowing through Intune. And we also introduced Microsoft Surface as part of this. And with Windows Hello for Business, that's going to be a hardware-backed security. And I know security is a big topic these days when people are working remote. And we also turn on Sentinel. And then we also help customers migrate to Windows Store for Business with Azure ATP. So this is something which we have already achieved. All this comprehensive solution works from cloud, and it is all set up in an automated fashion where once we set things up, now the customer is fully loaded on the cloud and they can manage all their apps, data, their productivity applications, device provisioning, device management, patching, security is all taken care from the cloud. So one of our customers came back and said, hey, if I can do all this from cloud, why do I need even on-premises? You don't need even a file share on-prem that can pretty much move to cloud. So in fact, we're also helping customers decommission some of their workloads from on-prem to cloud. Of course, the other end of the story is we are also working on the Azure cloud transformation and modernizing their applications. So that's one of those comprehensive solutions that we build and we take it to market. And this was actually done for one of our flagship customer, Georgia Office of the State Treasurer. And Microsoft was pretty impressed with that work. And Microsoft did a specific case study, and it was published in one of those Ignite conferences by Satya. So that's something which we do unique. And just a quick touch on firepower and how we would come in. and help the Microsoft field team accelerate technology adoption. We work closely with the Microsoft engineering team, so that's one of the primary reasons I moved from Texas to Seattle last year to primarily work closely with the engineering team to build tools and solutions that would complement Microsoft products. Microsoft is great at building cloud products. There are specific areas where we see opportunities where we as partner can step in and address any specific gap that we see. And over a period of time, we have built solution accelerators and IPs that would co-sell with Microsoft's offering. So that's something which we do unique, and we have seen this help sell some of these Microsoft products quickly to the market. And we also kind of come up with rapid deployment tools and specifically for setting up mission critical cloud configuration. So that's again an unique differentiator. We find out ways where, okay, there is some technology adoption happening in a very rapid way. So we definitely need to come up with a way of transforming a large number of customers in a short period of time. So we work upfront, we build those rapid deployment kits, and we take that to customers with the Microsoft field team and the solution team. So any solution that we build, it's pretty much co-sell ready. So that can be directly taken to customers. And we also work specifically with the accounts team to build their account strategy to drive M365 E3 and E5 adoption, to drive ACR. We also have a flagship solution to drive Surface adoption. And we also work with the field team on technology adoption sessions for a one-on-one consultation as well. And we also invest heavily on pre-sales. So we understand sometimes the funding that Microsoft comes in with ESIF and PI could be challenging. So in specific cases, we would even invest on those pre-sales efforts, and we wanted to work with Microsoft field team and make sure these technologies are taken to customer. So that's something which we do. And I really wanted to turn this over to Prasad to talk more on the WVD, but before that, I wanted to kind of bring something up, a quick call to action. February 16, we have a session coming up. This is specifically focused for the Microsoft team, the field team, which will talk a little bit more on a broader offering on our modern workplace and security side, as well as our Azure apps and infra side. So that's going to come up in February. So please stay tuned for that. Having said that, I'll be available to take any questions in the chat box, and I'll leave my contact details on the chat box as well. So Prasad, turn it over and let's talk all about the good work that we did on the WVD space with Microsoft. Over to you, Prasad.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jagdish. I hope you guys can see my screen. So thank you all for joining this session again. So I would like to introduce ourselves by giving our journey into how we got into WVD. If you see the timeline, we have been working from the year 2016, from the days where Citrix had this remote apps and Microsoft had RDS. So we were collaborating with Microsoft team from the year 2016. We built something called Azure RDS. What it is it helped a lot of MSPs and hosters to lift and shift their RDS workload into the cloud. We did work with the OCP team and the sales and marketing team and helped 25 plus hosters to lift and shift their hosting environment into Azure cloud. And as part of that evolution, Microsoft changed the RDS more into RDMI, which is the early days of WVD. We did build the RDS Manager, which was presented in Ignite and Inspire multiple times by Scott Manchester and the WVD team before. And as WVD evolved, we kept working alongside with Microsoft and also with the Microsoft sales and marketing, closely working with partners and customers and identifying the gaps that were available. And we were filling those gaps by providing tools. We were working with Microsoft to build accelerators to kind of for deployment and for enablement of WVD. As Microsoft evolved WVD into more ARM, which is Azure-based WVD, we still see that there are some gaps that our customers have, and we continue to develop some solutions on top of it, which our solutions are co-sell ready and they are available in the marketplace. So this has been our journey working along with Microsoft and customers and partners. So moving on, like why Firesoft? We were we were one of the original contributors of the WD adoption tools and framework from the beginning. We made some of the tools that WD owns what it is today. We were the original contributors of that. We did work along with Microsoft. We did a lot of work initially on the deployments and scaling and monitoring. And some of that got adopted by Microsoft and got into the WD. So that differentiates us from a lot of partners in terms of our depth and understanding of WD, having working closely with the product team and also with the customers and partners. With COVID coming in, we did find that we had to do multiple rapid deployments. When COVID hit, we had to go and deploy close to like 10 customers at the same time. So we evolved the process. We automated a lot of those deployments of moving the on-prem to the cloud. We created a process that allows partners and customers to quickly adopt WD. And we also build some tailored tools and services that will accelerate the adoption. I'll kind of give you a sneak peek at the tool at the end of this session, so you can have a sense of how the tool enables, accelerates the adoption for customers. And also we have experience in migrating either the on-prem workload, which are virtualized in different infrastructure and services. And also we have enabled multiple greenfield scenarios with COVID coming into picture. So the next slide, this talks about where we see more WD adoptions coming in. Having working from home, a lot of IT companies have been prepared to do it because a lot of us work from home previously before COVID. But what we saw was a lot of verticals like government, they didn't have the app modernization. They were not ready for doing work from home scenarios. They were not as prepared as some of the IT companies. We did see healthcare was not prepared because of regulation, and we saw like sales and marketing and corporate functions too. So closely working with a lot of government partners like City of Atlanta, DeKalb, and working with multiple, we had to bring some of their applications, which include some judicial systems. We brought in the Odyssey application, which they use for judicial systems, so that the staff can work remotely. And we also worked with healthcare customers where the remote healthcare workers were not enabled to work remotely as well. So I'll go through some of those case studies quickly. So one of the initial case studies we had was City of Atlanta, where with COVID, everything was getting into shutdown mode. We had to quickly get in, and then within 48 hours, we were able to get 100 of their users on WVD quickly. And we also enabled their business critical applications. We worked hand in hand with Microsoft CSAs, Cloud Solution Architects, and we built the mission critical configuration that allows them to securely connect their on-prem environment to the cloud and also have that ability to access the resources from their on-prem environment. Here is another case study with Columbia University where students have to be remote, and they had applications like MATLAB, Scala, M+. So some of them they had on Azure Labs, and some of them were not accessible for their students. So we worked with the university. They were a little bit on multi-cloud scenarios, so we had to quickly get them up and running, set the Azure landing zone for them. They had some presence on Azure, but they didn't have enough. So we come in from Firesoft and enable that initial landing zone, setting up those cloud environments correctly. So in terms of setting up their VLAN and setting up their VPNs and all their environments in a secure way. So the other use case here is we are continuing to work with the Australian the Department of Health, where they have the medical director app. All the clinics where all the doctors were working remotely, they were all using Teams and other video enabled tools, and they were taking all the notes on their personal laptops. All their patient information were residing there because of the COVID situation. So we worked with one of the partners there, and then we immediately brought in the medical director app. And then we were able to enable that scenario so the doctors and staff can remotely work like 80% of the scenario other than coming for certain tests. So this was a great success story. Now we are trying to see if we can take this scenario of medical app hosted on WVD across Australia. working with an MSP partner there. So beyond that, we are working with another South Korean partner, taking it Zenith, and we are trying to take it to multiple partners, including to see if Samsung would be interested to take some of the tools and accelerators we have built as well. So here, how do we accelerate our solution? We have done this multiple times. We have done this from the RDS days. So we have defined a predefined process for doing a quick initial discovery and prerequisites. We have a questionnaire. We try to understand what kind of workloads they are transferring, what is critical for them, and what is their current digital landscape. And we lay the foundation and roadmap for them, not only how to connect their on-prem to cloud, and also set up a greenfield scenario on their cloud infrastructure. We have some ARM templates and automation script that will enable us to quickly set up that infrastructure. We call it the mission critical configuration that Jagdish and his team comes in to quickly set up that landing zone for setting up WVD. That's where we see a lot of partners they see the WVD demo and then they try to adopt and they feel that, okay, they are not ready for WVD. One of the reasons is there is not enough maturity and guidance on how the customers set up the landing zone on Azure, because every customer is different and every environment is different, and how they do their identity of whether they're doing it on hybrid or whether they're setting it, whether they have it on AAD or not. How do they connect to cloud? How do they set up their environment? So all that experience from Firesoft we bring in to set up that core infrastructure elements for them. That becomes their foundation for not only WVD, but to kind of take that environment and accelerate other WVD beyond WVD, other Azure services adoption as well. So beyond WVD, once the WVD is set up, we see a lot of customers complaining about the cost because of how they spend on Azure. And then there is also governance issues where we can enable Sentinel, or we can set up like all the governance policies, security policies, Azure on the Azure Security Center. So there are multiple things we can do in terms of the managed service and support, not only supporting on WVD, but also making sure that they have this business continuity and also having the cost management and also the security and governance aspect of WVD that is being taken care of. So we guide the partners and customers post WVD implementation as well. In terms of our tools and services, we built a tool which is primarily has 4 capabilities. We divided that into like 4 pain points that customers see primarily with deploying. And deploying, when I say deploying, Microsoft WVD ARM templates allows you to quickly set things, but there are certain prerequisites you have to do, including setting up the identity network and infrastructure, and also building their images. So bringing their golden image into the Azure cloud to create those session host servers. That is something that we have a tool that will allow them to quickly accelerate in the deployment. Once the deployment is done, Microsoft Blades allows you to do most of it, but there are certain things like scaling and a few other optimization that you have to go into the backend and do certain things. So we have certain tools that allow them to enhance that WVD ARM experience on top of what Microsoft is giving, filling some of those gaps that we hear from the customers and partners. And in terms of monitoring, yes, there's Azure Monitor, but that does not, like a lot of partners we work with, they have a separate team for tier 1 support. And they don't want to give more access than what is needed, but the tier 1 access also needs certain corrective actions. So they want their the tier 1 support team to come in and fix certain issues quickly, like restarting a VM, setting a VM on a drain mode. So that'll allow that. So that tool also allows to do that. And then the other important thing once WVD is done is like reducing the cost of. That is something that we are extending the scale script that we built along with Microsoft, which we have been supporting until the last 6 months. So we enhanced that tool and we integrated into kind of a UI that kind of makes it simple for them to do it. So in terms of where they can deploy the tool, you can see like all the WVD services reside in the Microsoft. Microsoft manages this part, that on the bottom right corner. And then the clients still own their own services. We deploy everything on their client subscription and the client tenant. and then from the on-prem, they can try to connect into their subscription. So we deploy those tools connecting to Microsoft WD services. We deploy the tools. We have two versions of this. We can do like kind of deploy it into the client directly into the client subscription, or host it on our subscription, and they pay somewhere between $2 to $3 depending on the price is flexible depending on the volume of users they use per month. That's user per month, and that includes all the manage, monitor, and all that. And if they don't want to use tools, we still provide services for them. Like tools are optional, and services where we bring our technical expertise with all our SMEs who can come and quickly troubleshoot and enable their customer environment. So I'm going to give a quick sneak peek at the tool. Give me a second. Hope you can see the screen. Here there are two components. Here we have this manage. What it does is all the data that comes here are completely on the customer subscription. They can see all the hosts that are running, which are active, session hosts, number of users, how many sessions are going up and down, and they can see an activity feed. And they can also go and do like managing host pool. And then once they go into a host pool, they can look at like the workspace. The ARM template has new concepts of workspace. There is auto scale policies that are already integrated. They can enable and disable. There are multiple policies we have extended based on customers' requirements. And instead of going into Azure to do a backup on their dedicated pool, we have like policies that they can define right in here. And they can also manage their session host here. They can see which session host, what's the last heartbeat when it is down. They can manage their app groups and workspaces here. And again, if you go into the monitoring aspect, so based on the role, the users might have the manage or monitor. Here you can see all the hosts that are running. It'll give you a quick status, how the memory and CPU and disk utilizations are. You can see how the apps are being distributed, which apps are being used more. And you can also see the activity feed of which one is connecting, where the connections are happening and ongoing and disconnect scenarios. And also like if there is some errors happening, they can go and see all the errors of that particular environment here as well, if there is any errors that are happening here. And they can also get a detailed view of the host. If they have, if they want to go into a particular host pool, session host, they can get into this as well. Here. So a quick recap. Here is how it looks like when you have multiple host pool. You can see all the distribution here. When you click on a particular environment, you can see the desktop usage and session usage. You can also go drill down and look at it from host pool perspective, which departments have, which accounts have the servers running up and running here. And when you click on a VM, you can also see like how many sessions are connected, CPU utilization, memory, and disk read and disk write as well. That kind of ends my presentation for today, kind of giving a glance at how we can help partners and customers, and also help Microsoft Field Sales to kind of accelerate WD adoption. So I can take any questions now, myself and Jagdish.
Yeah, thanks, Prasad. I know we have some actual questions on the line. There's already been some very, very good questions coming up in the Q&A session. So one of the first questions, Prasad, that we received, and I know this one is specific to you, is are there any power management features baked into the solution to cut back on some of the Azure spend?
Yeah, so one of the important thing we do is like optimize. We call it optimize. That's where we have the scale script coming in, and we have not only the breadth and depth feature, but also we have some enhanced feature within scale where they can set the scale based on the day of the week, and different days can be set up with different configuration. So that kind of, and then depending on the workload, we also look at and assess like where customers' environment is, and we make the right recommendation, whether they can get into a pool desktop or a dedicated desktop. So we try to recommend more onto the pool desktop, looking at their needs, and also try to bring in the scale script, where that's where we see the maximum return on investment for customers on using our tools, where they can automatically turn off the VM when it's not needed. And some of the script with WVD 2.0, the updates that they have done recently, they've also released where the session host can wake up when the users are actually connecting. That takes it to the next level where they only pay for what they use. So we work closely with the partners and customers to ensure that we are bringing our tools in so that they are able to reduce their overall cost by using our optimized tools, which includes like waking up the VM when it is needed, if it is a dedicated host. If it's a pool, then they get into like multiple scaling scenarios that we can enable based on their needs.
Awesome. So there's also another question along the same line, or at least with respect to the tool specifically. And I know this is some of the functionality that you were very proud of when we created it back in the day. It's like, does the tool allow you to bring any on-prem images directly to Azure, or different from Azure Migrate?
Yes, we have it does half of the work. What it does is we use still the Azure Migrate, but in terms of building the first image in Azure, our tool allows us to kind of build that golden image of Windows 10 multi-session OS and then deploy the application. And then it adds it to the image gallery. So we provide two scenarios where customers can bring in their image, and we all provide certain golden images like having off already installed on Windows 10 multi-session OS, and then they can do the image building using our tool on top of the existing image. But bringing in trying to migrate an on-prem VM to cloud, that is still done by Azure Migrate. But if they're trying to build an image in the cloud, that is done by our tool. So, and then it shows up in their image gallery pointing to an Azure Blob storage account, and then they can keep all the images into that location.
Fantastic. All right, so, all right, there was somebody that responded to a question. But then one of the, so how does one of your WVD solutions help customers who is not adopted to Azure fully yet? And how does a engagement look like? Like how, can you bring some sort of clarity to that for Microsoft people out there?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I know, and then I apologize a little bit. Like it seems as if Prasad's audio might be a little rusty at times, but like I think Jagdish will be taking over just a little bit here.
Yeah, no worries. I got that, Jesper. I know work from home days sometimes.
Yeah, I know, it's dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's take that question, right? So there are a couple of approaches here. So there are enterprise customers who have certain footprint in Azure, but they're not fully set up to scale. So in those specific customers, what we do is we set up something called mission critical cloud configuration. So we call it MC3. So we go through and we do a full validation on their cloud posture, and then we set up their connections, site-to-site VPNs, take their identity, make sure it's all set up. So we do all that prep work, and we call that as a mission critical cloud configuration, sometimes referred as Azure landing zone internally within Microsoft. We set all those up quickly, and we have a framework to do that rapidly. And once we set that up, the base infrastructure is all ready for these enterprise customers, as well as small and medium customers. And then we bring in our WVD expertise, and then we onboard WVD for those specific customers. Now, we understand there are some specific use case where the customer is just focused on remote work and enabling WVD. In those specific case, the tool that Prasad was talking about, we can leverage our tool and onboard those customers pretty quickly. In most cases, in somewhere between 2 hours to 8 hours is what typically it takes to fully put a customer on WVD environment and bring them up and running. And on the back end, the tool would take care of setting up the subscriptions and stuff. So both options are available. Based on the customer needs, we would take an appropriate solution, and we drive adoption there for the WVD. And on the second part of the question, how does an engagement look like? So as we said, it just depends on how they wanted to take. Either for enterprise customers, we set up everything on the cloud rapidly, set up the BVD, and then we do the governance piece of it, and then we do the management of it, and then we kind of give the knowledge transition back to the team so the customer can fully start utilizing them. And one of the value add differentiation that we do is we do cost optimization. We have an proprietary scale script that we have built so we can bring on workloads and WVD environment rapidly and turn it off when customer doesn't need it. So thus they're going to save a lot of cost. So this could be one good reason they should choose WVD instead of AWS Workspace, because this is something which we have built and optimized specifically for WVD. So a typical engagement, we start with setting up the mission critical cloud configuration, WVD, and then we set up the management, cost optimization, and compliance, and then turning to customer and handoff. So that's how it typically goes on. And for customers who just want WVD, we have a rapid way of bringing them up quickly on cloud. So I hope that answers your question.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jagdish. Let's see, what else do we have in the pipeline? Well, there is the one and only question that it even pops up again today, so how long does it start, and how long does it take to get up and running, and how do Microsoft people leverage us as a partner to get this going? I know that you and me, Jagdish, we've been working with a lot of the field team. You might be able to bring some clarity onto that.
Absolutely, and that's something which we can definitely do. One of those, as I said in the beginning of the slides, one thing that we do specifically is to work with AEs in a working session specifically for those account strategy and account planning. So the biggest challenge that we hear from the field is, hey, we know the customer needs it. The customer also understands it, but they are not fully sure how to implement it and how their technical team would adapt to these technologies, right? So just to address that specific challenge, we work closely with these AEs as well as the customers, where we do some technology adoption sessions. So these are like working sessions where we bring our experts to work with the customer team, the technical team, pretty hands-on. Typically, it lasts between 3 to 5 days engagement. We quickly set things up. We show them how to do it, the right way of doing it. So the customer kind of adopts the technology and deploys them rather than just, hey, I have license, but I don't know what to do with it, right? So a lot of our customers, they had Intune for managing mobile devices, but hey, why don't you just manage your PCs and everything right there? So that's all doable these days. And we see a fairly large success rate with those kind of engagements. And often those leads to a different stack of technology adoption. I would give you one classic example. We did WVD for a customer. It turned out to be a Sentinel engagement. And for another customer based out of East Coast, we did Sentinel for them. And then it turned out to be an Azure file share engagement. So there are multiple ways where we come in and add value. We'll be more than happy to work with you on a one-on-one session if that's something which we can definitely help you and your customers.
Great. All right, so let's see. Feed is going nuts over here. So I have a direct question from from Anonymous here in terms of is Firesoft certified to work with Microsoft's AMP, so Azure Microsoft migration program? I think this is more on you, Jagdish, right?
Yeah, probably I can try to chime in, and Prasad can come on to this question as well. I know we are certified for specific programs, and we qualified for your PI and ESIF funding. I'm happy to double check for the Azure Migrate program, but I can definitely follow up with you. Sorry, I don't have the name here. But if you want to just shoot a quick email either to Jesper or me, we can follow up with you. I just want to make sure I provide the accurate information. We have leveraged a lot of ESIF and PI funding in the past, but for the specific question related to Azure Migrate program, I don't think there should be any challenge, but I can definitely get back to you on that.
Fantastic. Prasad, anything to add?
No, I think Jagdish covered that. Our tool is co-sell ready, like it's already validated by Microsoft tech team. So that's kind of one of the co-sell ready WVD tool that is available for that. And then in terms of AMP program and being on the specialized WVD specialized, we are working towards that goal. They have some requisites requirement, and we are meeting some of that, and we have to get it to that particular status. We are working with the Microsoft team with the PDM on that area.
Awesome. All right, so let's see. More questions. This is actually a little bit on your area, Jagdish. So like how are people managing when users are coming back to the office? It's more like a general question with regards to modern work and this new norm. Like, so like how are we managing this this you can say sort of migration from home to the workplace? Like, do we have something in place to like, or do we have some sort of strategy to accommodate that shift in work process rather?
Well, I can probably talk a little bit more briefly there. So I know 2020 was a little bit of a bumpy ride for all of us, and for our customers as well, right? And one of those things that they have been very much focused on is to meet those challenges at that specific time in hand, which is enabling people to work remotely, right? So that was the biggest challenge, and enabling people to collaborate. So we did a lot of Teams adoption as well as WVD adoption those time. We still see a lot of good traction on the WVD side, but we are also seeing that, hey, WVD addresses a specific segment. There are other elements that now our users are all remote, and since they are working remote, they kind of see more productive things happening there, and a lot of companies want to kind of continue that route. So how do we now ensure that the devices are all secure and the devices are all managed, right? So that's a challenge. We are trying to address the specific challenge as well by bringing in our solution expertise on the other modern work and security area, which is primarily on Intune, ATP with Sentinel. So we are migrating some of our customers from an on-prem managed device to a fully cloud managed device with Intune and Azure Active Directory and Autopilot. So that's something which we are driving a lot of those adoption. And some of these customers, they already have licenses, right? Hey, you already have these licenses. Why are you using Zoom? We can use Teams. Why do you need a third-party antivirus? I mean, let's try Defender, right? And there are other solutions like there are Airwatch and other products where we need them. I know budget is a big challenge these days, and IT is really challenged on budget. So we kind of do specific sessions to help customers and Microsoft AEs help take advantage of the existing customers' investment. So we do that as part of a workshop. We can probably send a flyer out which has more information on that. But then we have a specific strategy in mind. We know in 2022, it is more going to be, hey, we know we have crossed 2020. Now, how do we make sure we do a better management and ensure those devices are all secure? So it's all on security. So we'll be focusing more on the security side of the modern workplace.
Great, thank you. So there's, I think we might have touched upon it a little bit, but we might have not been too clear. But this is mainly to you, Prasad. It's a down and dirty question. I see. It's like, so how long does it take to get WVD up and running? Like with the tool, with anything? Like, what is the duration like? The hard facts of like something that they can specifically, or the Microsoft people here can say to their accounts that like, so this is how long it takes. This is what we do.
Yeah, as Jagdish did mention, depends on who the customer is. It's enterprise, SMB, what kind of customer they are, what kind of size they are. Typically, we have the tools that will allow them to adopt WVD within few hours, but in reality, it depends on where the customer is in terms of cloud journey. We are talking about a greenfield scenario where for an SMB, they want to quickly set up like a quick medical director app or certain app, then we can do that within, if it's a greenfield, we can do it within like a couple of days. and it depends on whether they are on what licenses, what Office licenses they, whether they're on E3, E5, or they have other types of licenses which are eligible for the WVD adoption. So if it is a large-scale enterprise, then they have different challenges. How do we bring their image? How do we do governance? How do we set up the infrastructure? How do we do cost management? How do we do monitoring? So those things kind of take somewhere around 3 days to 5 days, depending on the customer. So it all depends on how the customers are. But when COVID hit, we were able to get a lot of customers up and running within 24 hours. That has been our experience. And some partners are like, we work with the Australian client. It took like a month to even set up a greenfield. So it all depends on how good their IT team is. So we had to work with some IT person in a company that they were not ready in terms of their cloud journey. So we have to educate them, we have to evangelize them, and put the roadmap on how they can bring their identity, how they can effectively use their Office licenses, that they're already on Office and they have eligibility to use a lot of Azure services which they are not aware. That's where Jagadish and I come in and kind of educate them on trying to make sure they're able to take advantage of all the Azure services that are available to them. So the answer to that is it takes somewhere between 24 hours to I would say like 10 days, depending on the customer, how much time and how quickly they are interested to do it. But in terms of our tools setting up, we take like an hour to set up our tool. Like when the customer is ready, let's say they already have the identity network and infrastructure ready, and then they're ready to go with Windows 10 multi-session image, then they should be able to go with a couple of hours, get their VMs running, and have that ability to add users and remove users, publish apps. All that can be done. Hope that answers the question. There is no direct answer. It depends on the customer and the segment of customer and their IT team who we are working with.
Great. Yeah, there's always some ambiguity out there with respect to like the individual opportunities, and along those lines specifically. So like, who do people directly contact to get in touch with if they need some help with certain opportunities? I know that Jagdish might have touched upon it a little bit, but like, how do they go about and make sure that they have the right partner to alleviate these various paradigms that they experience out in the field?
So I think, I mean, Jasper, it would be you, right? So I think we got Jasper's email ID on the screen, so we can always you can reach out to Jasper, and he will bring in the right people. Either it could be me or Prasad, one of our experts, and we'll be more than happy to jump onto a call with you and work together with you on the journey. So that's something which we can definitely do. Jasper will be your point of contact.
Yep. So let's see. I can of course point to myself. That's perfectly fine. By all means, just contact me, and I'll be sure to direct you to the appropriate channels. And like, I've already worked with quite a few of you here in the audience, and so by all means, just reach out, and I'll be sure to direct you to the appropriate channel. Now, furthermore, a little bit more about the Windows Virtual Desktop paradigm, Prasad. There is like, so what challenges do we basically see for WVD adoption? Like, what have we experienced out there that has been challenging for our clients in general?
Right. So I can talk about my experience working with tens of partners who we have migrated to WVD. So one of the major challenges, they look at the WVD demo from Scott or some of the presentations online, and they think WVD is promising in terms of how they say the per desktop cost for shared pool of the numbers that Microsoft throws in terms of what it costs. So they look at it, they get attracted, and then they immediately set up the WVD, enable that on their Azure environment, and then they cannot go past that. They cannot bring their images, and then they cannot connect to their network, to their on-prem network easily. So there are a lot of bottlenecks in adopting, in deploying their first deployment. Like when like when I work with a lot of customers, they have tried WVD and then they get stuck in the middle of the way because there are not enough tools or guidances available on how to bring their apps or how to migrate their VM or how to set up identity network infrastructure. So those things have not been described in the WVD guide what Microsoft has done. So Microsoft has done an excellent job of providing the WVD service and giving those desktops to users, like where they can, with a few clicks, they can get a desktop readily available to them. Within few minutes, they can access it. But to get the desktop running, they need to have those apps, infrastructure, identity, and everything set up. So that's where we see like almost like 70 to 80% of the customers drop off to they try it on in a preview environment, and then they are not able to adopt WVD because of that issue. So that's where we try to learn from that experience, and we try to make sure that customers need not go through that ambiguous decision-making process in terms of building that mission-critical cloud, how much of security they need, how much of infrastructure governance they need. All that is baked into our tools that we are building that will allow them to adopt. So once the adoption is done, I see once when I see like 25% of the customers, when they figure out how to take the image, migrate it, and put it, the next question is when they get the Azure bill, they get worried about it, right? So the Azure bill, and then they see the huge bill, and then they say like, oh, we are not able to manage our WVD environment right. I'm getting this huge bill, which was not even in presented working with the account executives or solution specialists. So that's where we see that a lot of partners, they don't set up the environment correctly in terms of how they have to set up their scale script. So we work with Cabot Microelectronics, one of companies based off Italy. So they set up the environment. They didn't set the scale script. They were paying for the full session was running 24/7. So in reality, they could have set it up like where they set up the peak load and then they turn off the VMs when it's not needed, and the weekends nobody's accessing those in Cabot Microelectronics. So we immediately retrospect that issue and we enable the auto scale script for them. So that allows them to kind of save a lot of cost. So that is one aspect of that. And the other aspect, when a lot of people adopt the cloud, maybe they are using WVD as a vehicle to adopt the Azure cloud, then they have zero experiences in governance. So when they see some news article saying like this particular city was attacked ransomware, then they immediately go and see like, how do I protect it? Like, do I have to bring Sentinel? Do I have to bring Azure Security Center? What kind of security checks and balances do I need to put in my environment? So when they set up the environment, their goal is to immediately open everything, get the POC running, so that they can impress their managers or get their IT running. So, but the important thing is like governance. That's where we come in with a lot of experience and make sure all their environments are set up in a way that they don't need to deal with some security issues later and those kind of things. That's where Jagdish brings his his experience as well. So yeah, there are challenges in adoption. I would say even Microsoft is working hard to make it easier and better. But still, for IT to adopt, there are a lot of other challenges that they have that is beyond the scope of the WVD team in terms of BCDR, like backup, high availability, and setting up this different regions and all that, and then right sizing the VMs based on their requirement. There are some guidance, but when we work with multiple partners, we learn a lot and we bring that experience for our new customers.
Fantastic, thank you, Prasad. So I know that like before we wrap this session up, because we're about to hit the time limit, and I don't want to take up too much of your precious time. I know Jagdish had some follow-up comments to this particular questions on the adoption difficulties or some of the difficulties that our clients are seeing in the field. So over to you, Jagdish.
Perfect. So I think Prasad kind of addressed most of those. I just wanted to add a couple of areas. One is specifically on the applications. How do we make sure these apps work effectively in the WVD environment? And specifically to talk about apps which would locally cache their data. So that's something which we have really worked on. Things like Outlook and all those stuff. We are a company who've been always invested on the Windows 10 and Windows 7 and all those days. We helped customers move to Windows 10. and we do a lot of app packaging and work, SECM, and all those good pieces. So we got all that experience, and with that experience, we helped customers kind of optimize some of their app delivery challenges on the WVD environment, as well as implementing FS logic and the other areas. So that's something which we are definitely helped our customers, and we see one of those areas where customer has challenge. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Awesome. All right, then I will actually steal the last couple of minutes here. Since we're running a little low on question and time as it is, so I think it's about time that we wrap it up. I just want to make sure that, oh, it's actually the other way, that everybody see that we do have the upcoming webinars for our modern work and security practice. We're also working in Synapse. You have the dates over here. Also, we've set up a fireside chat if you want to meet the people behind it. So have like an intimate discussion with some of the Microsoft solutioning team that we're working with, and then also with Prasad specifically on that area. But to wrap it all up, I just want to say thank you, of course, to our speakers, Jagdish and Prasad, who gave this good presentation today, but also very much thank you to you lovely people here at Microsoft. And I just want to really say thank you for spending the time and also firing some good questions our way. And again, if you have any questions relating to any of these areas, then by all means, just fire them my way, and I'll make sure that the questions, or even schedule a quick one-on-one session as we're doing with a lot of the field people these days, and with either Jagdish, Prasad, or whoever is in charge of set focus area. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate your time and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.